French President Emmanuel Macron has slammed a US visa ban against former European Union Commissioner Thierry Breton and 4 others, saying that it showed a desire by Washington to intimidate and challenge Europe's digital sovereignty. Breton helped drive EU legislation that's recently targeted top US tech companies. Gabrielle Nadler has the story.
The Trump administration is taking its attacks on Europe from words into action. On Tuesday, the U.S. government announced visa bans on 5 Europeans who it accused of working to suppress American accounts on social media. The most prominent person targeted is former EU Commissioner Thierry Breton, considered a key architect of the Digital Services Act, or DSA, by the State Department. The landmark European legislation is meant to combat hate speech and disinformation online, but Washington argues it restricts free speech.
For far too long, ideologues in Europe have led organized efforts to coerce American platforms to punish American viewpoints they oppose. The Trump administration will no longer tolerate these egregious acts of extraterritorial censorship.
The DSA has become a frequent target of U.S. conservatives who see it as a weapon of censorship against right-wing thought in Europe and beyond, an accusation the EU furiously denies. Breton compared the visa bans to American political repression in the late 40s and 50s under Senator Joseph McCarthy.
Is McCarthy's witch hunt back? As a reminder, 19% of the European Parliament, our democratically elected body, and all 27 member states unanimously voted the DSA. To our American friends, censorship isn't where you think it is.
The 5 Europeans targeted were identified by Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy Sarah Rogers on X. Aside from Breton, they include higher-ups at organizations working to counter digital hate and disinformation. Along with the DSA, the U.S. has gone after the UK's equivalent Online Safety Act. Last week, Washington suspended a tech cooperation deal with Britain, citing opposition to the country's online regulations.
Well, for more on this story, we can bring in our international affairs editor, Douglas Herbert.
How are you, Karis?
The Americans then say that this is about free speech. Is that really the case?
Right. Is it only about free speech and more precisely, an absolutist definition of free speech where you should really be allowed to say absolutely anything? Or is it about something more? Is there something else behind the curtain? It's a little bit about both. Sure, it is about free speech absolutism. But more than that, it's an effort. It really goes to the heart of this nexus, if you will, this collaboration between the Trump administration, let's not mince words, and the big tech industry in the United States, the big Silicon Valley titans. We're talking the Amazons, the Metas, the Googles, the biggest platforms that everyone in the world knows and that operate throughout the world. Now, we've had a pattern over the past not just few weeks or months, but years now, where the U.S. has been more and more on the warpath against what they see as European attempts to over-regulate, that is, to rein in these social media platforms originating in the United States. And as we heard in that report, the U.S., the Trump administration, using the argument that that amounts to suppression or censorship of American viewpoints of these social media platforms and the cut and thrust of free speech. In fact, it really is a larger debate than that, because what you've had is Europe trying over the past several years to come up with models and methods to ensure that what happens online, if things are illegal offline, there should also be mechanisms for ensuring that they're illegal online. They're not parallel universes, or at least they shouldn't be. There should be common rules applied to reality and online. And what they've been basically saying is that we do need some sort of regulation, especially against potentially harmful content. And the question, the fine balance here, is the extent to which Europe can continue to regulate, sometimes aggressively, and how far are they willing to go if they are at risk, as we've seen in this current case that they are, of riling the Donald Trump administration, who wants to go in the opposite direction. We saw last year Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook announcing that they were essentially dropping their longstanding fact-checking platform. They're going to have a community note-style system, let people decide what's factual and not. So the U.S. and Europe have been tugging in opposite directions on this, but there's also a very much a transactional element behind all of this, because it does go to the heart of what has been a pattern in the Trump administration of big business often getting favorable treatment. So by attacking European tech regulation, going after these companies in Europe, especially European tech companies as well, not just policymakers, the U.S. is also trying to help ring fence, in a sense, its own big tech industry, because as you know, almost all of it originates in the United States.
Well, we heard in that report about the Digital Services Act, which Breton was the main architect of. Can you tell us more about what that legislation means?
Yeah, it is the source of all evil and original sin from the European standpoint, Karis. What it is exactly what the name suggests. Digital Services Act was an act that came into law. It's an EU regulation. That is, it was a law passed by all 27 member states. Well, 90% of them voted for this. And basically, it tries to protect minors. It tries to flag up what is illegal or harmful content. And when we say protect minors, by the way, we're talking about, the proliferation of potential sexual offenders online, trying to lure teenagers and children, into all sorts of schemes. We're talking about stopping gender-based violence, discrimination against women. Basically, it's not, as the Europeans see it, censorship. This is simply sensical, logical moves to make sure that people's behavior online conforms to the way society and policymakers expect them to behave offline. And why should something that's illegal, very illegal offline, be permitted online simply because free speech is cited? So there have been fines in recent months under the policies that came about as a result of the Digital Services Act. Fines against, say, Elon Musk very recently, 140 million euro fine against his X platform. And in all these cases, or most of these cases, they're citing several things. They're citing either illegal content, they're trying to regulate that. They're citing data abuses, that is the abuse of people's personal data, and illicit material, illicit content. That is things that literally just have absolutely no place being put online. This is now being also touted as a broader battle against, from the U.S. administration, to root out purveyors of so-called the people who fight disinformation, whereas Europe sees this as crucial in these times, especially for practical reasons, to prevent election interference, as we've been seeing more commonly. The U.S. says that this so-called fight against disinformation, this fight against online hatred, is really more and more just a pretext to rein in these companies and to rein in free speech. This is not going to be solved here by us on the set today, this debate. It's a longstanding one. But if you ask whether or not this is about more than just free speech concerns, absolutely. It's also about business. It's also about completely different visions of what the online world and the tech world, and going ahead, the AI world, should be allowed to do without regulation.
Yeah, well, we can see reactions still coming in from the Europeans, so we will continue to follow that. Thank you very much, Douglas Herbert.